All right, accounting 1B students. So what I thought we would do from here is maybe doing a quick example of what it looks like to identify something as a fixed cost and a variable cost. And then we'll also do another example of like the math portion of it, okay? So here we have Intuitive Inc. develops and sells software products for the personal finance market. So these titles, popular titles include QuickBooks and TurboTax. So it's asking us to classify each of the following expenses for this company as either variable or fixed to the number of units produced and sold. So remember, maybe go back to the prior slides to understand what is some definitions or what is an example of a fixed cost versus a variable cost, okay? All right, so our very first one we have is packaging cost, okay? So how would you record that one? So in my mind, because packaging depends on the number of packages you ship, right? Your packaging cost will be variable, right? It just depends on how many that you ship. Now the cost of shipping may be a flat rate, right? But your packaging cost, it just depends on the number of shipping. All right, sales commission. Again, your sales commission will likely be variable because it depends on how much the salesperson sells. And the more they sell, the higher their commission. And those are all examples of variable cost. Okay. Property taxes on the general office. That example would be a fixed cost. And it's a fixed cost because no matter if you sell, develop the software, or package it, you're still going to have property taxes no matter what. Shipping expenses, again, your shipping expenses, I would say that one is a variable cost as well. It depends on how much you ship. Straight line depreciation. The moment that they say straight line depreciation, that made me realize that this was a fixed cost, right? No matter what, it will always be fixed. The president's salary, that one is going to be a fixed cost, right? No matter how much you develop and sell or market, he's still going to get paid, or she's still going to get paid the same amount. The salaries of software developers, I'm going to say that one's fixed as well. Salaries of human resource personnel, again, that's going to be fixed. Wages of the telephone order assistant. Now that one's an interesting one, and I can see maybe why you would maybe go fixed or variable. Are they getting paid based on the number of telephone orders, or are they the more hours they work, the more money they work? So I'm gonna just say that one's variable. Okay. The cost of providing online support. I'm gonna say that one's variable as well, because it depends on how many people need assistance with support, right? The cost of the support is all the same. It just depends on how many people need it. And then user guides, I'm gonna say variable. That one could be wrong, but I'm gonna be okay with if that one's wrong. And so that one is, I'm gonna say variable, because again, that depends on how many people need the user guides. The user guides is a flat fee, but if you need it, then that's where cost comes in. All right, so let's see how we did. Okay. All right, so it doesn't match up perfectly, but the one that I got wrong, which I'm not afraid to admit, was this one. It could have gone both ways. Sorry, I'm erasing the right answer. It could have went both ways. So this one is not, anyways, this one is not variable, it's actually fixed. So that was my mistake. And I think I had this one as fixed, okay. So hopefully that made sense to you guys, but if you have any questions, again, let me know. All right, so moving on, I thought we would do relevant range, fixed costs, and variable costs using how do you plug this in. All right, so what I'm gonna do is switch to a different application so I can write in the numbers with you guys, okay? So give me a second. All right, so here we are. So it says we have this manufacturing company. They manufacture chips for electronic toys within the relevant range between 25,000 and 100,000. So that's what we are in the market to understanding cost about. So within the range, they're saying here's our partially completed cost schedule. And so what they're wanting us to do is fill in the blanks for them, right? So because we know certain things about fixed cost and variable costs, we can fill this information in, all right? So let's just start with what we know, okay? So so right now I'm gonna just work on this section first, okay? So I'm gonna not draw my line so big. So I'm just gonna work on this section first, okay? So if I am trying to find my variable cost per unit, well, my variable cost per unit is just going to be my total variable cost, which my total variable cost is here, 1,350,000. And then I'm going to divide that by my total number of units, right? Which is the 45,000 units. And so then therefore my variable cost per unit is going to be, it's going to be $30 per unit, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing for my fixed cost per unit. I'm going to take my total fixed cost, which is the $810,000, and then I'm going to divide it by, so that was 30, sorry. So I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can, okay. So then I'm going to do, again, my fixed cost, and my fixed cost is going to be the $810,000 divided by the number of units produced, which was 45,000. And that total comes out to $18 per unit. All right. So then if I'm trying to figure out what is my total cost per unit, the way I can figure that out, you can do one of two ways here. So your total cost, go with this one. Total cost per unit could be your 2 million, which I'm going to get from here. So 2,160,000 divided by my 45,000 units. Come on, right. Which is going to equal $48, right? That will go here. Or another way I could have done it was if I add my variable cost plus my fixed cost, those two added together. So my 30 plus my 18, that will equal my total cost of $48, okay? So hopefully that made sense to you. I am going to erase this, and then I am going to do the last, the middle column for you guys, okay? All right, so moving on, now we're going to look at the producing 60,000 units, okay? So do this. Okay. All right, so now we have this information, and now this is where what we know about fixed costs and variable costs has to kick in. Otherwise, we were going to be completely clueless as to figure this out. Now we know that when we're dealing with fixed costs, we said fixed costs, no matter what, it stays the same over the duration or no matter what, right? So our example, maybe think back of when we were doing the Airbnb, right? When I went on that vacation to Cancun, Mexico, we said that it was going to be $4,000 no matter how many people came. The same thing could be said about the salary of Jane when we were producing those that perfume, right? Jane's salary was $75,000 no matter how many bottles that was produced, right? So fixed cost overall remains the same no matter what. No matter how many units I produce, my fixed cost is the same. So with that in mind, what I'm going to put here is $810,000. And here goes $810,000 too, because it remains the same. No matter how many I produce, my fixed cost remains the same. Okay. Now, so from here, what you can do is kind of follow the steps as we did before. You can do your fixed cost. You can figure out your fixed cost per unit. And the way we can do that is the 810,000 divided by our number of units produced, which is 60,000 units. And that comes out to 10 divided by 60,000 units. And that comes out to 1350. That's what we'll go here. Okay. Now that's not enough to figure out our rest of the stuff, right? We need to figure out what is our variable cost, right? We're trying to figure this out. Now, if we go back and think about our variable costs, there was some very important things that we learned about variable cost as well. We said, maybe thinking back to when we were talking about, let's see, when we were talking about taking a class at Norco, right? We said the cost of taking a class at Norco was $62 per unit, right? And so we said no matter how many units, number of units, no matter how many units we take, the cost per unit will always be $62 per unit, right? And then another example that we had was, I think we were buying direct materials from a supplier. And so the cost of that direct materials per from the supplier to produce those speakers was, I believe it was $10 per speaker of direct material. So we said no matter if we produce 5,000 units or 10,000 units or even, 30,000 units, our cost per unit of buying that material from the supplier was $10 no matter what. So applying that same logic, the cost per unit is the same across the board. Well, here it says no matter how many units I produce, right, the cost per unit remains the same. So here, my cost per unit will be $30 as well, right? So now what I can do is I can work backwards to figure out what number goes here, okay, which is my total variable cost. Now, if I did $30 times the number of units I produced, which was the 60,000 units, my total would be $1.8 million. And that's how I would come up with my total cost, $1,800,000. Okay. Now from here, it's quite math, right? It's like filling it in. So if I did 810,000, right? $1.8 million plus my 810,000 of fixed costs, my total cost would come out to $2,610,000. Okay. Now from here, I can, my missing blank I have is my total cost per unit. Now my total cost per unit would be, I can do 30 plus, I can do these two numbers added together. So 30 plus 1350 comes out to 4350, okay? Or I can take my 2,610,000 and divide it by the total of number of units I produced, which was 60,000 units, and I would come up with the same answer. Okay, so now what I would encourage you guys to do is take a second and see if you can figure out the matching or the next parts of this video, right? See if you can figure out what goes into J, K, M, N, and O. Well, I did K for you, but see if you can figure that out. So pause the video right now and see if you can do that, okay? And then once you press play, I'm gonna have the rest of the answers here for you to just make sure that you are on the right path, okay? Pause it now. All right, so what you should have come up with was, this one was, again, should have been $30, right? And then 30 times the 75,000 units should have been 2,250,000. And then you add that to your fixed cost that we figured out, which was 30,60,120. And then your cost per unit for fixed cost divided by 75,000. That should have been 1080. And then your total is 4080. Okay. So hopefully you got these same results. If not, let me know, then we can go from there. All right, thanks.